As promised, my top tips that I totally confiscated from other YouTubers, and now they are my own. Hey, it's Kara. Welcome to my take at the lake. So this is my favorite collection of things that I have commandeered, that I've learned from other YouTubers, and now that I've done that, they have become my own. So let's start where it started. I'm not sure. I can't remember who the first junk journaler was that I saw. But I know my first obsession, the one I binge watched first, was Pam at the Paper Outpost. As you all know, because about 100 of my first videos all talked about her and her videos. I learned this from Pam. This is what Pam did today. I'm doing this because Pam told me to. So we'll start there. And get this other stuff out of the way. And we'll start there. I've learned many things from Pam, but these are my favorites. I learned my glues from her. She learned them from somebody else. She was using other things, and then someone said, why don't you try a Scotch Create glue? And she did and loved it. And then she passed that on to her YouTube watchers, and now many of us, do the same. And these are my favorites. I've used others. I've used tacky glue, all different kinds. I have to agree with Pam, are the best that I've tried. So until I find something better, these are my favorite three. Scotch Create glue stick. You can get them. The last time I got them, they were a 4-pack for $8, so $2 a piece. If you buy them individually, that was on Amazon. If you buy them individually, they're between $5 and $6.50, depending on where you get them. So you can find them on a screaming good deal for $2. The junk ones cost $1.58. So for $2, get yourself good glue. Fabri-Tac or Fabri-Fix or Beacon 3-in-1, all the same glue. All made by Beacon. All made by the same people. It's all the same glue. Different name depending on who is selling it. Just like TJ Maxx in the US and TK Maxx in the UK. Same chain of stores. It's just UK version versus US version. Same stores, same chain, same owners, same glues. Art Glitter Glue. There's no glitter in it. It's made, I think, originally for glitter, in that it's wet enough to hold the glitter, but not wet that it runs all over the place, and it dries clear, so then all you get is the glitter. So it was originally perhaps made just for glitter glue, using with glitter. There's no glitter in it, so fear not. It dries clear, permanent, water-based, non-toxic, dries acid-free, all good stuff. Can't recommend it highly enough. The other main thing that I have taken from Pam's instruction is having a basket of pages ready to go. I'll put a picture here because it's one of my favorite pictures ever. It changes. For a while it was only coffee dyed paper, and then I started experimenting with food coloring and stenciling and watercolor and just doing edges, and this basket just got fuller and fuller and fuller with different kinds of papers. And so when I do a project, all I have to do is go to that basket and pull out pages that are ready to be decorated. They are all a little bit different. And as you know, I like to just fold them in half and be done. This is also, I made these random stamps. I can also tear these out and use these for page edging or clusters or whatever. So I have all kinds of things. I have food coloring, watercolor. These are just edged. These were dyed. This is all food coloring, more edging. This was some kind of sponge play. I don't know what that was. I have no idea. Different kinds of paper. This is that you learn how to write cursive handwriting. Old composition book paper. Deli paper. Avocado dyed. So these are good things. This is a particularly good thing to do when you want to do something, but you don't feel like making a project. Prepare for projects. Spend a day and do some coffee dyeing, or get out all your stencils. This is another thing I've seen Pam do that I am anxious to do myself. Now that I have a beautiful collection of stencils, I'm going to get all my stencils out and just stencil for a while and make pages that are ready to grab, fold, and go. So that's one of my very best tips, is to have one of these baskets of yumminess full. Another tip, if you live where it gets seasonally hot and cold, do the coffee dyeing, especially if you're going to do it. Dry it in the oven in the winter. Because I've been on this summer cycle. I need coffee dyed paper. We're coming up on the hottest time of the year here. It's in the 80s and 90s. And I'm going to have to turn the oven on and dry papers one of these days. Unless I can eke out till the fall, which I'm going to try to do. Just another helpful tip. Next is a thing that I know she wasn't the first to do it, but I saw Cat Hand do this for the first time, and for me it was a game changer. Never saw anyone do it before. Take a water brush. This is just a brush that you fill with water, handy dandy. And when, instead of cutting something, fussy cutting, because you'll get a nice harsh edge, you take your water brush and outline your item, whatever it is that you want to get out of the page. And that water softens up the pulp of the paper, and it becomes just super easy then to tear. And it gives you that nice, rough, torn edge. Easy peasy. Now, this is not rocket science, but oh my gosh, what a game changer it was for me to see this done. Like I said, the first person I saw do it was Cat Hand. I've since seen lots and lots of other people do it. Yep, I tore it, but well, that's what washi tape is for. It's fine, it's fine. It also, the same works on book pages especially well, but it'll work on magazine pages as well. This glossy stuff takes a little bit more water because it's got a sheen on it. Can you see how it's turning colors? The water has broken through that gloss. It'll work. Just got to give it a little more love than the book pages. Give it a second to seep in. And then it just tears so beautifully. And if you get not quite what you want, if it's wet enough, you can go back in there and get up to where you want it, or re-wet it. That works too. You can tell when I did the wet part, there was no noise. This, where all the ink is, isn't quite wet enough. And so it's tearing poorly. There we go. Now you won't be able to hear it much. Another thing I just saw somebody do just a couple of days ago, and I don't know who it was. I will look it up and flash the name up on the screen for you. To make these glossy pages vintage, take a piece of sewing pattern, that brown tissuey paper, put a little Mod Podge on, put this sewing pattern over more Mod Podge. The sewing pattern kind of disappears, but it gives it that vintagey look to it, and it takes that shine off that glossy paper. Another thing that'll take that off is clear gesso. Not all of us have that clear gesso. That will knock back that shine. you could take a little bit of regular gesso and water it down really a lot. And that might take down a little bit of the shine, but the sewing pattern paper will most certainly do it. Another thing that I've seen people do to take that shine off is use used tea bags or used coffee filters. And that works to beautiful result too, but for me, I don't want to mess around with emptying tea bags and cleaning off old coffee filters. To me, that's too much work and too much mess. So I would just as soon glue a piece of sewing pattern paper over it. But there's lots of ways to vintage up new glossy pictures once you water brush tear them out of the page. I have no idea who I saw do this the first time, but using these exquisitely useless catalogs that they send you as glue pads. You know, if you have something to glue it so that you get all the way around those rough edges onto this, and all your over gluing is on these pages. And this is, you put that wherever you want it. Once this page is kind of yucky, either fold it over. That's what I tend to do because I work sometimes smaller. And then I have this page, and then I take this out, and I'll use this side of it. So I get a lot of use and reuse out of each page as a glue mat. So that's, I don't know who I'm probably going to say Cat Hand, because between her and Pam, I watched both of them obsessively when I first started. So we'll give Cat Hand that credit. Also credit Cat Hand for learning about journaling by fives. This is my journaling by fives notebook that I did. I have a whole video on that. I'll link it below. One of my favorite projects ever. She learned it from Shannon Green. And the idea is, when you're not sure and when you're kind of stuck or stumped, is to have one of these old-fashioned egg timers. To me, the tick, tick, tick makes a big deal. A lot of people just set the timer on their phone. I like to hear the tick, 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 but set it for 5 minutes, and then all you do is throw in backgrounds. You just throw in the background. And then that's it for the day if you want to be done. If you want to go further, set your thing for another 5 minutes and just mark make. Get out a stamp and just, for 5, and just make marks on the page. Just make marks. Then the next step, set your timer again for 5 minutes. And I think mark making, they separated mark making and stenciling stamping into 2 steps. So you could do that. First mark make just with anything, and then get out your stencils and or stamps and do that. And then another 5 minutes, just run through and put in focal points here and there. I only did one side of each of my 2 pages because I wanted to use it as a creativity journal, and so I write. So when you go through it this way, you see all the pretty pages, and when you flip it upside down, and I don't know why I didn't reverse this, but I didn't, my creativity journal. And I love this book. I love, love, love this book. So Cat Hand and Shannon Green for that. You can use this timer technique with anything that you're having difficulty starting, or maybe find yourself uninspired to do. Once you set the timer, you gotta just go. You can't hem and haw and talk your way out of it. You have 5 minutes. Whatever time you set, 10 minutes. I use this for writing all the time. When I teach writing classes, we use this timer a lot. You just gotta go and just write, or just paint, or just tear paper, or make marks on a page. It's kind of like just diving in instead of tiptoeing and testing the waters and walking in slow and walking in up to your ankles and then taking a break. You just dive in. You just go. So this timer is a great tool in the craft room, in the studio. Even when you're cleaning, if you have a messy studio or a messy house or whatever, set yourself 10 minutes and just clean one corner, one little spot, one drawer, one anything. You only have 10 minutes, and then you got to stop. How much you're going to get done in those 10 minutes, or 15, whatever suits your fancy. So the timer technique that is used in the journaling by fives is universal. It'll work on anything. Do 10 minutes in this corner, 10 minutes in the next corner, or another round of 10 minutes in that corner, depending on how bad that corner is. This is another favorite from Cat Hand, a composition book of unwasted paint. So you have your little palette out and you squeeze out your colors to do your project. There's not enough to scoop back in, because I've done that. I'm not afraid to say that. If there's extra paint on that palette, I'll scoop it back into the jar or the bottle or wherever I got it. If I can, I'll cram it back in there and use it another time. But sometimes there's just not enough to scrape up and save, but there seems a bit much to go down the drain. So take your brush, whatever it is you're working with on that project. Sometimes you're stenciling, sometimes you're painting with brushes, sometimes you're stamping, whatever it is. Put the extra in a composition book. This is just, I got a whole bunch last year after back to school sales were over. They put all that stuff on clearance. So I got a truckload of composition books for maybe $1.25 a piece or something like that. So I just pulled one of those out, and every time I do a project, I clean my brushes off, or my sponge, or my stamps, whatever it is. One thing you have to be careful is to only do it on one side. Otherwise, you'll end up having to choose between, oh, do I like this one better or this one better? And who needs that kind of aggravation? So just do one side of each page. And I have to tell you, this is about almost my favorite part of every project, is cleaning those tools off. Here's the sponge work when I did the edges of my dad's book with a sponge, and I cleaned them off, cleaned those sponges off in my composition book of unused paint. So I've totally adopted this idea. I love the sound of it. This is a different project, obviously. Or maybe this was edging his pages. This might have been Dad's too. That was a completely different project. And there wasn't much paint. And sometimes there's enough paint to do several pages. And it's just so much fun. This is the one from my dad's, edging my dad's pages to match the kit that I had purchased. If you haven't seen those videos, I'll link the playlist below. It's making my dad's patriotic journal. But I had lots of paint left on whatever it is I was using as a palette that day. It was something odd. And I just took my brush and I cleaned it off on here. And I did several different pages in here with those colors. But I also did some index cards. These turned out so much fun. I sprayed some more water into the paint and I just blotted my index cards in there, spattered it with water, might have put some salt on because I put salt on everything. This is my miniature watercolor. This is watercolor paper that I haven't put a cover on it yet, but it's just folded up little pieces of watercolor for when I feel like doing mini watercolors, because I like doing mini watercolors. But I used it to do a background. This is going to be a stormy forest scene, water on the lake or something. But they're such beautiful stormy colors, and I found this when I was cleaning. It's going to be an art journal. Carrie at Mixed Media Arts has me so completely inspired to start a mixed media book. This is just something that I had been gluing things in. I've also did some unwasted ink work. So it's part unwasted paint and it's part glue book, and it's going to be, isn't it cute? It's going to be mixed media art. I did a pen and ink challenge one year and just drew lots and lots of feathers and things having to do with feathers. So there's all kinds of things in here. I love drawing fish flies. So fun. Anyway, don't waste your paint, I guess this is my favorite. This is one of my favorite tips that I learned from Cat Hand. Use up as much of that paint that you already have out. Do I put extra out? I don't put extra out. But usually I don't put enough, and then I put a little bit more, and then I go, oh, I'm tired of this, and I put a lot by accident, and then I have too much. But I don't specifically put out extra so I have stuff left over. This is just, if I have it, this is where it goes. And that is that, again, thanks to Cat Hand. Recently we've talked about my tearing rulers that I made from the three for $1.25 tree. I took a Dremel and just rounded out some edges. I took the Dremel and hit it just randomly, and then I took my box cutter and I cut just jagged chunks, because there's nothing to them. It's almost like cutting paper. If you're gonna do this, be very careful. Box cutters are dangerous. I used to work in the ER. Trust me on this one. And the Dremel, if you're using a Dremel, that plastic will shoot all over the place. So put a pair of glasses or safety glasses or sunglasses on if you're going to do that. I got that idea from Natasha at Treasure Books. She wanted a tearing ruler and she didn't want to pay for it. She didn't want to wait. So she took one of her cheap rulers and she took it up to a metal fence and rubbed it on that fence like a fingernail file. And now she has a beautiful tearing ruler. I thought, well, I don't have a metal fence, but I do have a Dremel. This idea are these giant D-rings for washi storage. I got this from somebody I recently discovered. C-E-R-I, Carrie the Crafter. He's a really good teacher. If you are looking for a calm, easy to follow, very organized guy who does beautiful work, he's your guy. But he had these washi tape organizers, and I absolutely love them. And I've reorganized my whole studio into everything is either vintage, black and white, or bright. And so far so good. These were, I think, $10 for the 3 of them from Amazon. You kind of got to be careful in that when they open all the way. So things fall off as fast as you put them on. So you kind of got to hold one, you know, to get one off. You got to hold at least one of the ends. Otherwise, you're going to have to keep putting them back on. That can be problematic, but once you know that and know what to do to avoid that, you're good to go. So let's say I want that pretty polka dot one right there in the middle. I would just go, time to go, move it around so that one is ready. And you don't even really have to take them off to use them. You can use them right from, see, I've got it peeled like in the last video. If I've used them, they're all turned up. They're all folded over so that I can use them again. What I'm going to have to do is take them all off and make sure, like the toilet paper roll, how does it go in your house? Does it go up over the roll and you pull it down? Or does it go under the roll and you pull it under the roll? In our house, it has to go over the roll. So I want all of these to be going the same way. Do you see how these two are over the roll and these two are going to be under the roll? I don't know why the humidity here is horrible, so maybe that's why they're not sticking together, folded. But that way it'd be way easier to pull and use if they're all facing the same way. So that's a project I wasn't planning on, but now can't stop thinking about. That will have to be done before I put them back on the shelf. One thing I learned from Artie Mays is she fills her glue bottle up either at the end of every session or at the beginning of every session. So whenever she sits down to do her projects, her bottles are full. I used to use it all the way to the bottom because I wanted to see how long it was going to take and how much I could get done with it. And in my mind, it would kind of make the overstock last. But you gotta do this and wait and do this and wait, especially with the 3-in-1 or the Fabri-Tac. It's quite thick. So if they're full all the time, no waiting, no frustration. I'm all for that. So I have adopted Artie Mays' habit of making sure my glue bottles are full when I sit down to start working. I have learned loads and loads and loads from the wonderful and beautiful people in this community. I'm sure I have adopted other things. I will start another running list, and when I have enough to share with you, I will certainly share again. But those are the things that I've learned from other people that have been so helpful that I have made them my own, and I do them every single day. And I think they can help you too. If it can help save some time and save some frustration, well, then I'm all for it. So I hope you enjoy these tip videos. A little bit different than what we normally do, I think. Maybe it's exactly the same as what we always do. I don't know. Whatever it is. I hope you're having a fabulous day. Go love up your beastlies. We'll chat again soon. Mate at the lake. Out for now.